Okay, so I installed Forza Motorsport today, and I'm like, I'm going to make a video about it. I'm gonna play it. It's a racing game. Okay? It's a snort fest. I mean, what you do is you race the cars in circles. I mean, it's tough for me. After GTA 5, I cannot wait for GTA 6. And to be honest, this is my opinion, and I would like to see what you think. In my view, GTA 5 driving feels better than all these sim racing games. That's my opinion. I understand maybe if you have like a steering wheel or something like that, it might feel better to drive. But the cars, they feel like stiff. Like you don't have a lot of control when you're driving. It doesn't feel fun to drive. You get what I'm saying? Like I remember, I don't know, Ghost Recon Wildlands. Okay? That driving is not realistic, but you are in the mud and you're kind of, drifting all the time in the mud and the dirt is wet and it feels fun to drive. Okay? I understand a sim racing game is supposed to be more realistic on the driving, but it's not fun. Okay? It's not fun. There's nothing that would make me come back to this unless I get like a steering wheel and maybe it will feel better. But after I got my driver's license in my car, that feels better to drive. Okay, absolutely. I have a lot of fun with that. Also, when I move, I rent a truck, and man, that thing was feeling so good, so powerful. Yeah, the steering that big thing, it was so much fun. But yeah, that's the game. So I don't have anything special to say about the game. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to share some new blue light killer settings for native HDR. Okay, because previously the blue light killer settings that I shared with you were for the SDR HDR trick for black frame insertion. I did a 22-point calibration to increase the near black visibility. So this one is for native HDR. So no 22-point calibration to increase the near black. So the reason why I like these settings a lot, I mean, these are the default settings for my TV. This is how I play most of the games. I like blue light killer settings because it is gentle for my eyes. Okay, so now the problem is if you just come here to the settings and you enable this, reduce blue light, it looks very ugly. Very, very ugly. It looks like green. It's a mess. So, but it is gentle, more gentle to your eyes because it is reducing the color temperature. But it looks very bad. So what I did is I used a cell phone app called Color Temperature Meter app. And I reduced the color temperature to the same degree as this reduced blue light, but I made it look good. Okay? And it is so impressive. So impressive. It doesn't look yellow. Okay, it does look yellow. The whites, that's the whole point. You reduce the blue lights because the blue lights are nasty for your eyes, especially when you want to play before going to sleep. Okay? It's nasty. It's going to affect your sleeping. I mean, just playing in general before going to sleep. Any screen time is not recommended. Okay? But sometimes that's the time I have before going to sleep. I want to play. So no blue lights or reduce the blue light. It's just better. It's just better. It feels better. So I wanted to make it look good, and it does look good. So here's what I did. I used this color temperature meter app, and the reason why I'm going to explain you the process is just in case you have a different display, you can do the same thing. Hey, if you have an LG OLED, give these settings I'm gonna share with you, give them a try. I use a 2-point calibration. So what I would recommend you is to start testing on your own TV with these settings, and the rest of them fine tune them. And even this one, you might have to fine tune it. So this is what I did. In the high point, blue -50, green -22. So now why? How did I figure this out? So here's what I do. I use the color temperature meter app, okay? And I come to my TV settings and I punch in what it is supposed to be accurate, okay? Like filmmaker mode, for example. You have warm 50, you have your color saturation, at 50, everything is like a standard, like the closest to D65 with normal settings on the TV without calibration, okay? So now that I have those settings that are supposed to be the closest to the way it is supposed to look like, I use the color temperature meter app and I get a reading of the color temperature, but also more importantly, there is a green to magenta balance. Link in the description of the video to a video where I show you that app so you can see how it looks like, so you know what I'm talking about here. You have a color temperature reading and you have a green to magenta balance. This app is using the camera of your phone, okay? So now that reading is not accurate at all, but it doesn't matter, okay? Because what you're going to get is a number, okay? It doesn't matter if that number is accurate or not. It's a number that you're going to replicate. So for example, in my case, I get green to magenta balance 0.003. So now, when I want to, that's with accurate settings. Now, when I want to make it blue light killer, here's what I do. I come here to the blue gain and I kill it. I reduce it to the minimum, which in this case is minus 50. And by doing that, I drop the color temperature from 6650K, which is the color temperature that I get with accurate settings. I drop that down to 5950K, really like 6000K. And the problem is that when you do that, then the green to magenta balance gets messed up. So I have to reduce the green to minus 22 to get the same green to magenta balance, which is 0.003. That's it. And now, one consideration is that I reduce the green as much as possible while still getting 0.003. Why? Because if I'm going to make a mistake on that calibration, I much rather make a mistake towards magenta than towards green, because you don't want to see green looking faces, okay? That's what happens when you use that reduced blue light setting on the TV. So I want to get as close as possible to magenta than to green. And it looks very good, man. Trust me. You try this, you're gonna be like blown away. Like, how is this looking good? Okay, it's looking good to my eyes. We're not talking about accuracy here. So now, I would recommend you to give this a try just to see how it's looking by doing this. And of course, test it with your own phone, with the app. But after doing that, I want to make sure that the color temperature and the green to magenta balance is consistent across the entire grayscale. What I use is some full screen test patterns that are full screen pictures of the entire grayscale, okay? And I use those full screen pictures with the app. I'm gonna post a link in the description of this video with my folder, basically my Google Drive, where you can download these test patterns that you can use for this calibration. So download those pictures. You will see from 0 to 255. So you go over the entire grayscale and you're gonna do a 22-point calibration to keep that same color temperature. So for example, in my case, with my cell phone reading, it was reading 5950K and green to magenta balance 0.003. I want to have that exact same number on every single picture, and I do. Almost. I mean, there are some very, very minor variations. It's almost like a rock solid reading. Very consistent. Very, very consistent. And of course, when we do that on Windows, we are opening these pictures. The ICC profile that you are using matters a lot. So if you are using the HDR calibration app profile, across the entire grayscale, you're gonna see minor differences versus if you use the ICC profile that I share with you to fix auto HDR on Windows 11. Okay, so my recommendation would be to do this calibration with the HDR calibration app profile, because for native HDR games, because native HDR games are going to use that profile, or use it for the ICC profile, and that's gonna work for auto HDR. Okay, so I realize that you cannot calibrate your TV and have it looking perfect for auto HDR and native HDR games. That's not possible. Okay, so let's say you pay a professional TV calibrator to calibrate your TV for Windows to play on your PC. If they calibrate with the HDR calibration app profile, that is going to look good for native HDR games that look good, like this game doesn't have black level rays, no problem. And for auto HDR games that are sRGB when they are SDR, basically. But for auto HDR games where you have to use this ICC profile that I recommended, then that calibration is not gonna look good. So you would basically need 2 calibrations on your TV, not 1, 2. Okay. And we only have one single game optimizer mode on this LG OLED. So you would have to calibrate 2 HDMI inputs if you really want to go after accuracy or something like that. I don't care. Okay. Well, that's what I did. So now on the 22-point calibration, I'm gonna share with you the settings that I have. But my recommendation is to try this yourself. Okay. And of course, color is important. I will share the color settings too. So now, I do not want to touch the low point here because I would need to raise the blue here on the low point, and I cannot, because if I do that, I lose the perfect blacks. I cannot touch it here. I cannot touch these numbers here. I cannot increase them because I raise the black level on the TV. Very difficult to tell. We're talking about almost imperceptible, but you do increase that. So let me show you the 22-point calibration so you see how it looks like in my case. I'm gonna start with the lowest code value. So now these code values, they change depending on the tone mapping that you are using. If you're using HDIG, or if you're using tone mapping off or dynamic tone mapping, depending on the tone mapping target. Okay, mastering peak max CLL 540 or 1000 is gonna change this number, but it doesn't matter. When you change the tone mapping, these numbers, they change automatically, and the calibration that you did stays. Okay, it doesn't really matter. But this is how it looks like. On the minimum code value 17, I cannot see anything on the picture because it's too dark. My phone camera cannot see anything, so I don't tweak anything there. Okay, then we go to the 53, and I have mastering peak max CLL 1000. I'm using dynamic tone mapping. Okay, but I did the calibration with HDIG. It doesn't matter. I'm not gonna have do a different calibration for for dynamic tone mapping and HDIG because I only have one game optimizer mode. It works the same. It works the same. So code value 53, you see it here: red 0, green 3, blue 3. So I have to increase that to get the same color temperature and green to magenta balance on my specific TV, my specific panel. Test it on your own TV, test it with your own phone, and have fun. This is very fun to me. The results are spectacular. Okay, code value 53, red 0, green 3, blue 3. Code value 148, red 0, green 0, blue 3. 235, red 0, green 0, blue 3. 300, red 0, green 0, blue 6. 350, red 0, green 2, blue 7. 393, red 0, green 1, blue 7. 430, red 0, green 1, blue 6. 463, red 0, green 0, blue 0. So yeah, I didn't change anything there. Let me change now to HDIG to see if there's any difference. Oh, before I do that, let me just show you the settings I'm using. I'm using FPS here. Instead of a standard, I'm using FPS because the reason why I use that is so I have the option to increase the clarity, the sharpness in some games that look blurry. I'll show you that setting, and it works better when I use this FPS. Any other mode that is not standard mode, but make sure to change the black and the white stabilizer to the default 10. Okay, because to get the best picture. And I'm using AutoMotion Pro High with dynamic tone mapping on the native HDR here on this game. Okay, so then when I do that FPS mode, I have to reduce the color depth to 46. Okay, and how do I know? I use a red clipping test pattern. That's an HDR test pattern, and I use it with HDIG and the color depth on 55, which is the default. And I see that HDIG, ideally you would like to see everything flashing before 800, but it doesn't. The color red is clipping earlier, okay? But I see the 500 flashing. So then what I do is I use FPS and I reduce the color depth so I can also see the 500 flashing. So basically in that way, I am not clipping the colors more. And the reason why you would clip the colors more if you leave the color depth in 50 or 55 is because that FPS game genre preset is increasing the color saturation. This FPS mode is increasing the color saturation. So that's why you have to reduce the color depth to get the same clipping. Okay, so you get about the same color saturation. That's why. The reason why I do that is because I want to use this clarity in some games. This adjust sharpness behaves differently when you are using those game genre presets, FPS. It is different when you're using standard and you increase this number, it becomes softer instead of sharper. Okay? And that might be beneficial to reduce anti-aliasing, but yeah, I want sharpness, not softness. That's why. So let me change it to HDIG now and show you the code value. So you see that it does change. You will see it becomes now darker. Well, it almost doesn't make any. Yeah, it does become darker with HDIG. So now you will see that these code values, they might change, but it's still the same thing. Let's go 17. See, 000, 53, 033, 148, 003. I think they're the same. 235, 003. I don't remember. 300. No, I think they changed. 006, 350, 027, 393, 017, 430, 016, 463, 000. So I did the calibration with HDIG. So those are the numbers. I'm not sure if that was different. Don't remember. Let me know. So that's it. If you have a different TV, give it a try. Get the color temperature meter app on your phone. Test the accurate settings of your TV, okay? And take a look at the green to magenta balance reading. Again, accuracy is completely irrelevant. I don't care if your phone is good, bad, if you have a good camera, if you calibrate the app or not, if the color temperature is wrong, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you are getting a number. And that number, you're going to replicate that. That's it. So you're going to replicate the green to magenta balance. You're going to lower the color temperature as much as possible. And the only thing you're going to make sure is that you keep that number that's green to magenta balance. Why? Because that's what's going to make it look good. Okay, and I've tested that in other TVs and in other technologies, and it works. It worked on my plasma TV. It worked on my IPS gaming monitor. It works. Okay, you can reduce the color temperature and make it look good, basically. So give it a try. I absolutely love these settings. This is how I play. Okay, I don't care about accuracy whatsoever. Blue lights are necessary for picture quality, but when I play before going to sleep, I don't care about. I want to play and feel good, and not have my eyes suffering that much. Okay, so there you go. Let me know your thoughts and opinions if you have any questions. I mean, the HDR settings for this game is like just change the brightness to depending on your display until you see the logo disappeared. That's it. If you never see the logo disappear, maybe your display is changing the tone mapping depending on the max CLL, and in that case you would have to increase the brightness to the number that you know your display works best with. Like if you have an LG Ultra Gear 240 hertz monitor, it's like 650. So it depends. Learn that. That's all you have to change. The HDR looks very good, and the game looks good. It's just a racing game. And I see some popping. It looks flat. Like, you know, this looks very flat. No shadows on the trees here, and I have the graphics maxed out. With no ray tracing, of course. that's never an option for me. It just doesn't make sense. But yeah, it doesn't look great. It looks okay. You see the wheel for a moment was static, not even moving. It also has some bugs like that. The textures popping. Like you finish the race and you see the car popping. Like, you know, it has some weird bugs. You know, Microsoft and Game Pass probably downgrading the quality of the games. But yeah, it's what it is. Let me know your thoughts and opinions, and if you have any questions.